G'day everybody and welcome back to another episode of Craft by Tim. Now I'd love to continue on working on the sword. Unfortunately right now it's just going to take a little bit longer to get out the next episode. I'm going to continue working on this. I've just basically got a bunch of kinks to work out. Quite literally. I like feet. My god, shut up. In today's episode we're going to be forging a knife because I don't think I've actually ever done a video on this. And to start off with, let's talk materials. Basically, there's a massive option for different types of steel. And here I have a bit of a variety of different things that you can use. A lot of these are more advanced steels, so if you're not quite into knife making just yet, I'd start off with something simple. You can start by using something like 15 and 20. SUP 9 is a really good option, but of course you also have your simple carbon steels, which are pretty easy to come across. Things like 1084, 1075, they're generally pretty good to start off with, but of course you don't need anything fancy. You can of course use an old file, bearings, of course cast springs. You can be even less fancy and just make it out of mild steel. If you're just starting out, I would always recommend starting off with mild steel because it's a nice way to learn. The steel will move a lot easier for you. You'll get a much better feel for it a lot faster. Today I am actually going to be using some Damascus steel. This is a bar that I forged out for other projects, but I don't know whether or not they're actually going to work, so we're going to use it for this instead. So this is a 16 by I think 6mm bar, and we're going to see what we can make out of it. And the next step is to talk design. What are we going to be making? Well, we're going to actually be making one of my favorite types of knives, probably my favorite type of knife. It is the paring knife, because they're so simple. They're good for all sorts of jobs, whether it be big jobs which are going to take slightly longer, or small jobs which they can do really fine details if you put the time and effort into them. They can be really amazing knives. And not to mention, you can sort of take them anywhere. You can take them with you when you go camping and all sorts of things like that. So I wanted to make a really nice small paring knife, and we're going to go for an integral bolster. I don't know whether or not we'll be able to achieve it. It's a pretty advanced thing to try, and I'm going to sort of hopefully be able to give you step-by-step instructions on how to do it, but I don't actually have a lot of the tools that I had for my old anvil, for the new anvil, so I'm going to try and do this basically with very limited stuff, which will hopefully allow you guys to get a better idea as to how you could do it with limited stuff as well. So let's jump in. First things first, we're going to cut off about 3 inches of that material. Obviously you don't have to do that, but because one end of my material is actually burnt, it means that I can't guarantee the carbon content in that area, so I'm just going to use that for the tang, and I'm going to start by forging out the rest of the blade. First up, I'm going to start by drawing out a pretty gradual taper to form the point of the blade. The sharper the taper, of course, the sharper the point. However, this is actually where I make my first mistake. By working further down the blade, it means that I start to sort of fish mouth the ends, and the end starts to open up, as you can see. This is something that I can only really fix by cutting or grinding that off. Alright, so I find this situation kind of funny because, of course it happened. Not saying that I'm perfect, but I don't often stuff up blades badly. And the one day that I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna film how to forge a knife, because I've never actually done a video on how to forge a knife. I stuff up a blade so badly. I don't know how I managed to stuff that up so badly, but it's still salvageable, so we're gonna salvage it. I'm gonna do a little bit of grinding to get it back to where it's meant to be at this point, and then I'll put it back in the forge and forge the rest of it. Sorry guys, that's unfortunate. But it's kind of just the way that things go sometimes. Catch you in a bit. Now I can start to forge in the bevels. The side that I choose to do this on is a side that the taper bends towards, and as I do this, the material moves and starts to sweep up that point. Then I can start to draw out the tank. I have to be careful to make sure that I leave enough material for the bolster. And then I'll finish off with a bit more straightening, and then finally a normalizing cycle. Not the best forging I've ever done. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to clean this up a bit. I'm going to use a belt grinder a little bit, but I reckon this is pretty close, so I should be able to do mostly file work. Then once I have it cleaned up, then I'll probably do normalizing cycles, a heat treat, tamper, and then finally I'll do a etch, and I'll show you what it actually looks like. Right, so it's been a particularly restless night for me. It's currently like 5:30, I'm about to leave for work, but I figured that I should film this beforehand. Tossing and turning over what to do about the sword. Think I've got an idea, but it's a bit risky, and it will probably require me to possibly delay that video again for another week, which I really don't want to do, but I want this blade to be functional, although I probably will never use it for, you know, a functional purpose, as functional as a sword would be. That's not what this video is about. This video is about that knife. So originally I was like, I'll just forge it. I'll just forge it out and show you guys the process of how to forge a blade. And then the forging went horribly, and I do admit that. That was not good. That was definitely not my finest work. And then I was like, oh, you know, I'll clean it up just so you guys get a bit of an idea of what the pattern will look like and everything like that. And then I did all that, and I was like, you know what? It's actually the Easter long weekend. I've got 4 days off. I could handle this thing. And so I did. And that's it there. It's the first time that I've ever done a tanto style sheath, and it is not perfect. I can still see light through there, but it worked out reasonably well. And it's a bit tight when it gets to the blade. Overall, it's actually not a bad paring knife. The handle is more or less, well, it's octagonal in a sense, so it's easy to grab from either side, so you can cut down or pull back towards you, like peeling potatoes and stuff like that. Not a bad attempt for doing a tanto style handle and sheath. If I'm saying tanto or tanto, if I'm saying that wrong, please forgive me. I'm not bilingual in any state. Anyway, I hope you guys liked the way that... I really like the way that this turned out. The timber is actually really, really nice. So, I hope you guys enjoyed. And this actually kind of gets me sort of thinking, maybe I will do a proper tanto, because it's actually a really fun idea. The only problem is that I have to try and find a piece of material that's big enough that I could actually do it. And hopefully next week we'll have more of the sword build coming along. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, maybe consider subscribing, as it helps out the channel. And I'll catch you all in the next one. In the meantime, do remember to stay safe, happy crafting, and as always, cheers.